Union of the Unknowns, a podcast dedicated to the exploration of modern culture, presents a weekly digest of current events that may have slipped past your radar. This is not your mama's news. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Not Your Mama's News, presented by the Union of the Unknowns. I'm your host tonight, Keel Thor. With me are the Unknowns. She's a woman of high sophistication, Ashley Think, Change, Repeat.
Hello, how are you?
He's the British volcano buster, Terry Canary.
Good evening, world.
And he's the aptly named Big Perm.
What's going on, everyone?
What's going on? We're doing a show. That's what's going on. Not Your Mama's News, the one where we bring top-notch, high-quality, first-class, top-of-the-line news and information from around the globe that showcases the clown world in which we live. Tonight, we've got some great stories. Hopefully. Ashley's got one, I think. Ladies first. What have you got? Unmute. There you
go. Sorry, I was checking out our live streams and making sure that everything was on the up and up there. Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here with you, fine people. So what I wanted to talk about today, I'm just going to go with one. And then if we need a little something else, I'm going to circle back. I'm going to Jen Psaki it. We're going to circle back. What I want to talk to you today about is a story that Candace Owens started discussing several months ago. And this sort of, it was coinciding with the time that she was leaving the Daily Wire when she started to kind of discuss this. So this is not one thing that I want to let people know about is that if you're hearing it in our kind of circles, this is not an original finding or an original story by Candace Owens, but she's covering it for us Americans. So basically, in the last several years, the French president is Emmanuel Macron, and then he's married to a much older woman by the name of Brigitte Macron. And so there were apparently some journalists that wanted to just highlight the French first lady, right? And they start kind of digging into things, and things start to get a little bit weird. So they're not able to really find pictures of Brigitte Macron as a child. And then they are sort of having to like scrap, tooth and nail to even be able to get a picture of her first wedding. And they began to be suspicious. And this was not based, according to my understanding, this was not based in a political hit piece. This was just people that literally were like, they liked them and they wanted to just tell the story of the French, the first couple. So as they start digging, like I said, they're having a lot of trouble finding pictures. Then they started to notice some other weird things that in some of the stories when Brigitte is speaking, she gives different timelines like, I was 6 years old when my sister passed away. I was 8 years old when my sister passed away. It was 1 year later when my niece passed. Things like this. So just some inconsistencies in her timeline that she's speaking over the years. Then they start looking into her ex-husband, who she was married to for 30 years. And there's all of this weird information about him. He's basically a recluse. He spent his last days supposedly in a psych ward being guarded by somebody who's associated with the Terry, what is the White House basically referred to as their Palace Elise?
Elysee Palace, yeah.
Elysee Palace. Okay, so somebody who's associated with that was kind of guarding him, and it wasn't publicly known, and they can't find photos of him and Brigitte together. I mean, there's just all of these things that are just not adding up. So they start digging and digging and digging. And then some of the journalists were sued by Emmanuel and Brigitte, but they were not sued on the point of fact that something wasn't up with her. They were sued on things like, oh, this photo was, this was colorized or something like that, like little things, but not the crux of the story, which is basically they are starting to think that Brigitte was actually a man. And and the story is so strange. So
hold on,
yes.
This sounds kind of familiar. The leader of a country having a...
It does sound familiar.
It does sound familiar.
Where have I heard that before?
It does sound familiar, yes. But here's the thing. There's actually, there's a lot of similarities. So photos of Brigitte are not found when she's pregnant. They are really not found before she is like a woman at almost 40 years old, supposedly. And that is even in doubt. So some people think that she is as much as 10 years older than her stated age. So when and yes, Keel, I see your face. Everybody else is stoic in this chat, but Keel, he's emoting. He's like feeling this. Yes, I'm here for it. So then we have this huge age discrepancy with Brigitte, but the story gets darker. She was a teacher at Emmanuel Macron's school. And she was, by her definition or by her storytelling, 39 years old. And he was like 15 when he caught her eye, or his eye, as they say. So that happened. So then the other thing, and so there's so many details about this story. I highly encourage you to go to Candace's YouTube page and listen. I think that Candace is controlled opposition. Yes, she's like in this alternative media milieu or whatever. But in my opinion, the information and the way that this story is being laid out on her YouTube channel is top notch. It's very fascinating. It's being told in like digestible segments. So every day you get about, let's say, 35 minutes of coverage or something like that on this story. And it kind of is covering a different aspect. So there's so much more here than I really even could talk about. But the other thing that I wanted to discuss in this situation is that, first of all, the journalist who has been working on it is coming out with a new book, which is going to be published very soon. So hopefully they will have an American version of that. Then I'm pretty sure that another journalist who was working on this in France ended up dying in mysterious circumstances. That sounds very typical for this day and age. Then the other strange thing is that Emmanuel Macron, they are also having trouble finding any pictures of him with like his parents or his siblings, and he barely talks about them in his autobiography and his book. And he's basically raised by his grandmother. And then he also has these in his like his painting that would be put up in the what did you say, Terry? I'm sorry. Elise Castle?
The Palais Elysee Palace.
Elysee Palace. So in his painting, there's actually books of people that are basically pedos in his portrait. So there's just so many weird things. Then a photo came out yesterday showing a picture of Emmanuel and his nephew, supposedly, that's from Brigitte's brother, like twin brother or something. And he looks exactly like Emmanuel Macron. So then something that Candace has discussed in her breadcrumbs in this story and theory is that there is obviously, we know with the predator class that there certainly is a theme of child harm. However, she's also dropping the incest word as well. So I'm not exactly sure where she's going with her point, and I have not read the French author's work, and he's been covering this for years. But this story is totally bizarre. And there's so many things. It's not like she's just a man. It's like she was a man. She might be as much as like 15 to 49 age difference when they met. She appears to be his handler. She has shady background, like family history that doesn't line up. He has family history that doesn't line up. Her suspicious death surrounding her ex-husband that she was supposedly married to for 30 years. It's bizarre, guys. So I find it fascinating and something that you may want to check out. I encourage it.
Now, I had heard she was, his school teacher or something before. But what is your impression? Is this all just speculation, or is it? Do you think it has any merit? I mean, it sounds interesting, but
yeah, I don't think it's speculation. I really don't. And here's the other thing. I think when you look at her and you see some of the pictures of what her brother supposedly looked like as a child, and he's not really out in the public space, it looks like her. Then, here's something else that Candace pointed out. They have associations with. Oh, Terry, I can't wait to hear what you say. Give me 1 sec. So Emmanuel's parents, his mother was a childhood or a child physician. His father was a psychiatrist. So that's always got to perk your ears up, because you never know with like a psychiatrist and a government association. All bets are off. Like, this could be just an MK Ultra sacrifice, basically, the kid. And then the mother apparently was associated with social services in France, but she also worked with people that were transitioning. Okay. Then there's photos of Brigitte for a very long time where she's wearing, like, they have associations with a feminization expert doctor, and she's wearing a scarf, like, for a long time. So Candace had speculated that she was trying to cover up her feminization of having the Adam's apple shaved down. So with all of the things that I've heard, I certainly think there is 100% something to it. And then the other thing that I want to point out is that recently I've been studying a lot of, and by studying, I just mean listening to a lot of podcasts and documentaries on these different child harm rings that have been found. So the most famous one that we know about and everybody knows about is Epstein here in the States, right? And a lot of people think that that's an isolated incident, but it's absolutely not. There's so much more dealing with that. Back in the States, back in the 70s, John Wayne Gacy, he was connected to a huge network that was countrywide, at the very least, if not global. Then we had the Franklin cover-up scandal. We had McMartin Preschool. We had the Presidio Airport or military base where children were being harmed. They're associated with Michael Aquino, who's a psychological operations guy. So anyway, there's all these threads woven in, but then that also extends to overseas. So what I have been listening to and reading about lately is a very famous case in Belgium, which is Marc Dutroux. And there's a lot of connections. And basically the government according to Program to Kill Dave McGowan, that the government of Belgium was almost overthrown. It's a small country, and they had 300,000 people protesting because of the absolute corruption that people recognized with police officers, judicial officers, and then executive officers as well, that were trying to protect Marc Trudeau and whoever else he was associated with. Right. So all I'm trying to say is that then you see some of the stories about what they did to people and then what they found, and people that are saying that they are survivors of that. And then you get into these elements of people that were, the human hunting parties, the torture in order to dissociate, like all of these things, there's similarities across the board. And so I feel like there is an element of that, in that whatever is going on with Macron, and they're suggesting that Brigitte is his handler, that maybe he's just been groomed for this and potentially like tortured, MK Ultra, like his entire life, to simply be this puppet figure. Now, Candace is not talking about that part of it, but that all of these things are like red flags for noticing for me. Like, I'm obviously, we know I'm not some sort of expert researcher, scholar, academic, anything like that, but I do notice.
I think you're a fantastic researcher. Terry, what have you got? What comments have you got for us?
Yeah, thanks. Just to make a point about the Detroit scandal, that was probably the biggest child abuse scandal that happened in Europe. And as Ashley said, it was like the Flanken scandal. It seemed to go all the way to the top, involved a lot of NATO people because Belgium's a big NATO centre for Europe. And it was so bad that the firemen turned up with their hoses and trying to sort of symbolically wash out the Parliament building by hosing it down. So it was a really big scandal, but it didn't really go anywhere. And, they maybe got a few low-level people, very like the Franklin scandal again, but, the people at the top were immune, seemingly. And just to go back to the Macron thing, that story has been going around for a while. I came across it a few years back, that both Mrs. Macron was a man, and that it's very like the Obama situation. Macron sort of was boosted from nowhere. He formed a new party out of nowhere and suddenly got elected in. His background's very shady. No one seems to remember much about him in various places. And I think Ashley covered all the major points and told me a few things that I hadn't heard, actually. But yeah, it was always speculated that she was set up as his handler, or he was set up as his handler, possibly. And even if she is a woman, it's a bloody weird situation because like Ashley was saying, he's 15 and there's this teacher who's a hell of a lot older than him, basically stalking him and sort of grooming him for God knows what. So yeah, they're a weird couple altogether.
Yeah, we see those types of situations here in the States every once in a while. Well, pretty often, really, where a teacher, lady teacher gets involved with one of the teenage students, and there's a big scandal and whatever, and then, weirdos in office spaces high-five each other, and then we move on. But over there in France, I guess it's, just the order of the day. Nobody cares.
Well, you guys had mentioned. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Perm. What do you comments you've got?
No, you guys had mentioned that sounds familiar, and I just so happen to be listening to the Hotep's Been Told You this morning, and Uncle Hotep is reading a book about Obama, and he had mentioned two things from Obama's younger years. One, that when he was a young child, they had like a housekeeper / nanny type person that was a cross-dresser, and it said that he never dressed as a woman in front of him, but he would see him putting lipstick on. And then later on, when he moved to Hawaii and was a bit older, that apparently his grandfather was there, and there weren't a lot of black people in Hawaii. And one of his grandfather's friends that he would like drink and party with was a black guy that was a swinger that would swing both ways. And he would go to all these swinger parties, and he asked him to teach his grandson to be black so that he was like a mentor to Obama. So,
Okay.
That's two new things I learned about his past today.
Yeah. And they have government connections as well. There's his mother was a government employee, so there's some shady stuff, and he does appear to have been maybe groomed from a young age to be this puppet player. And I did want to say on the point of being hot for teacher here in the States, famously there was the case of Mary Kay Letourneau, and she was absolutely
That's my backyard.
Really? Yeah. So you can tell us a little bit more about that. I don't know their age difference, but basically, I don't know if you know about this story, Terry, but it was very famous at the time. So she was a teacher, an adult, and she ended up starting to date, but really it's groom and rape, one of her sixth grade students, which would have been probably 12 years old at the time. And they ended up, she got pregnant by him, but the book was thrown at her. Like, she ended up going to jail for a very long time, and she was absolutely dragged in the press. So it was nothing like the Brigitte Macron situation, certainly.
Wow, that's
I would say Obama is the epitome of fake and gay. He's fake and he's probably gay.
Yeah. because he
I
was,
don't actually think it. I think he's got. I think the birth certificate thing is genuine. I don't think he was born in the US at all.
at all, not
He
even
seemed
in
to have a
Hawaii.
national insurance number that. I don't think he was born in Hawaii. He's got a national insurance number from, I can't remember what it was. It Connecticut
like
or something.
Kenya.
It doesn't seem to. He has got
I think he was
no connection with
was born in like
no
Kenya.
connection with Connecticut at all. Yeah, I think he was
Huh.
born in Kenya.
As far as Mary Kay Letourneau goes, she was actually married too when that all went down, and her husband was two of my good buddies. They were twins in high school. When they were in grade school, her husband was their baseball coach, and
Oh, wow.
so she was 21 years older than Billy Pulau, who she had the relationship with, and they
Sheesh.
ended up getting married, I think, while she was in prison, and they stayed together until she died of cancer a few years ago. They did get a divorce, but it was because in this state you can't have a marijuana growing license if you're a felon, and he had this like aspiration to have like this big marijuana growing company, so they got a divorce just on paper, but they stayed together the rest of her life.
Right. So it wasn't her on the name, on the document.
Well, I guess it's all relative, isn't it?
I mean, it's still fucked up,
Yeah.
but I mean, you could say maybe they were in love at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the real thing is like the love may have been there, but the problem is the power dynamic. The power is, in the hands of the teacher with somebody who is considered to be sexually mature with somebody who is considered to be a child. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, and I know y'all know that, but I think about that too. I'm like, well, they ended up, being married and having kids together, but like,
Yeah,
listen,
he's 41 now. So
yeah.
they, he was with her as a grown adult for a long time.
Yeah. But you still think about like, what is the psychological impact of the grooming as a
Yeah.
child?
Well,
Right?
a big part was he never.
Mhm.
I assume he never had any kind of relationship with any girl his age his entire life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because how
Because
could you?
starting in sixth
Yeah.
grade, he was with her.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
what
up
are
to
you,
then,
12, 11?
yeah,
sixth
you're like
grade?
12,
Yep,
yeah.
11, 12. Yep.
And up to then you're like dancing with girls, you're like a foot apart dancing together at the school dance to Boys to Men. You know?
Yeah, I think at the sixth grade dances, I just
On the
stood in a
bright
circle
side,
with my buddies
Yeah.
Yeah.
and talked about the
Yeah.
girls over there.
on the bright side, he would have got. On the bright side, he would have got very good grades, of course, at school. So it's swings.
You had
Sure
to
he
work
did.
for it, though.
Yeah.
All right. Perm, what story did you bring for us?
I have a short but sweet one, but it fits to the week we're in. And it's fake and gay or dumb and gay, whatever you want to call it.
Just so
A
long
rec-
as it's gay.
A recent study by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, evaluated the weather prediction accuracy of various groundhogs. The findings revealed the
This is
Staten
awesome.
Island Chuck boasts the highest accuracy rate at 85%, while Puxatawny Phil, despite being the most renowned, has an accuracy rate of approximately 35% over the past 2 decades. The study highlights that
no.
predicting the
No.
onset of spring for an entire country with diverse regional climates is inherently challenging.
No. The most accurate is General Beauregard Lee down here in Atlanta. He's the most
You
accurate.
got your own groundhog.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
Must
Down
be
here,
an
he's
East
actually
Coast thing.
He's actually in
I've got a
Gwinnett.
I've got a
County down
question.
here.
I've got a question. Surely Punxsutawney Phil can't be the original Punxsutawney Phil. They must have had many Punxsutawney Phils over the years.
So I heard
long
on
do
the radio
groundhogs live,
this
would you
morning that groundhogs last about 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
So there's
So
been
quite a lot of them then.
lots and
Yeah.
lots of Punxsutawney Phils.
Unless,
And
ironically,
money
they
is
live,
being
they live in
spent
the
on
same
this
day over and
bullshit.
over again. That would be good, wouldn't it?
More USAID government waste.
Government money laundering.
Seriously, I mean,
Yeah.
damn, we spend so much money on bullshit. It's unbelievable.
At least
Not
this
that
is
that's-
on groundhogs in the United States and not in like Syria or something.
Yeah, I guess that's something.
Hey, can I give you an update on the story? I'm just looking at Perm's link here. General Beauregard Lee is in the top 5 for accuracy.
Yeah,
So there you go.
Number
You've got something to
one.
be proud of.
Number one.
Oh my gosh. Terry just fact checked me, body slammed me because I was giving Keel a hard time in the chat for just making things up.
Have you got a groundhog in where you are, Ashley?
Oh, I have no idea. Probably. I should check on it. I don't know. Maybe Keel already knows all about it and knows how not accurate it is.
You probably have some living in your backyard. You
I
go
would
out
like
there
to-
and ask them.
Oh, there's a Wyoming
read
prairie
out- can I
dog
read out the
statue
top-
named Lander Lil with 75%.
Randa Lil.
Hmm.
I was going to
It's
read
a
out the
statue.
top 5, yeah. A mythical
How's
West
that
Virginia groundhog called Concord Charlie at 65%, and Illinois Gertie the groundhog was 65%.
You know, it's funny that
Tony Phil is down at 17.
all of these groundhogs have a better than average rate here. I mean, they all
so
predict
true, yeah.
more often than not the actual outcome.
Except for Punxsutawney Phil that we put on TV every year.
What was his number?
35%.
Oh, 30. Okay, well,
35%.
geez, what a fuck up that guy.
So I
is.
figure there's a lot of groundhogs, and that they sort of spread about the 50% mark. So,
I always thought it seemed backwards because if he sees his shadow, then spring is going to be farther away. And it's like, well, if he sees a shadow, that means the sun's out. So maybe spring is closer
that never
than we
made sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Groundhog Day was a fantastic movie, by the way. Just wanted to
It
put
was
that out
good.
there.
It is a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorites.
It is a good one.
All right.
It's like all great comedy films. It's very deep as well. It's got a great deep message
Yeah.
for everyone.
And of course, Bill Murray is excellent, as he typically is.
Fantastic.
He was really
I'm-
good in Zombieland.
He was the best part of that movie. You can throw the rest of that movie out, but that scene with him in it.
I'm
was
not
pretty
into
damn
zombie
good.
movies, but I really liked those movies.
Yeah.
It
I've
was
not
a good
seen
movie.
that.
It was fun. It was.
Yeah, I
it
only
was
saw the
funny.
one.
Terry,
But
you
what
should
was
check
that?
it out if you and Fee. Zombieland.
Right. Well, we don't really like zombie movies. What was that film where he was at an airport in Japan? That was a right load of bollocks.
That's Lost in
um,
Translation.
That's it.
That was
It's
a great
really highly
movie.
rated. Lost in Translation. Yeah. Oh,
I need to watch
hated
that
it.
one
It
again.
was so boring.
Oh, I watched it at least 3 or 4 times. I liked that movie a lot.
It's a bit
I've
creepy
got-
as well because he's a lot older than the lead. Oh, sorry. Am I distracting you, Q?
It's all right, man. We've already established that age doesn't matter when love is happening, right?
I suppose. Yeah.
My wife's older than me too, so.
From Terry's hometown of Cornwall, England, there's a group of elderly farmers with a patch of garden that they maintain. They've had it for a few years now. It's along the River Truro, and they've done such a damn good job of keeping these flowers and everything beautiful that it's become a destination for people to dump their human ashes of their loved ones, and it's become such a nuisance that in one case, one of the volunteers at the garden got a mouthful of ashes when the wind kicked up and knocked the ashes into her face as she was eating in the garden there.
Like the Big Lebowski.
Don't laugh. Yes, exactly.
It's a typical Keel story.
These people are fed up with it. They say it's not funny at all. People say, well, it's only ashes. Well, you get a mouthful yourself and you tell me it is a pleasant experience. It is an awful thing to happen, this person said. They've issued an appeal to the community. Please stop dumping your human remains in our garden. They've actually had to issue this community appeal here. And I feel bad for them because that's pretty terrible. However, I will say that ash is very good for a garden. So they're probably getting some pretty good fertilization there. But it is human remains, so there's probably chunks of bone and a random tooth occasionally that the pulverizer missed, And assuming there's probably some people out there that just throw their loved one on a bonfire in the backyard at some point and just kind of scoop it up instead of doing it properly at a crematorium. But you never know. Anyway,
have you seen these?
Cut it out, Cornwall.
Have you seen these posts where they're saying that if you bury someone on your property, then it can be zoned as a cemetery and you no longer have to pay property taxes?
Really? I have not heard that.
Wow,
I don't know the truth in it, but if it's true, it's an interesting idea.
You should put something out on Facebook. Hey, anybody need a spot? I can accommodate.
I'll give your family like 20 grand to let me bury next person that dies.
I have some input. The announcement in Cornwall would have probably gone, you got to stop dumping these people on our property. They talk a bit like that down there. They talk like pirates down here. And this thing is a problem in loads of beauty spots because even on the top of Everest, I think people have been dumping ashes, and certainly at the top of lots of mountains, and people have had to, they're trying to put a stop with it because it is a bit. It's not only unpleasant, but because people are so toxic and they're full of, they're full of mercury fillings or toxic pharmaceuticals. It's actually a bit of a real health hazard. And it's not just unpleasant; it's downright dangerous. And they have this. I think you've probably heard this story. They've got this tradition in India where they put people out for the vultures. That's part of their religion. They want it to be sort of properly recycled by nature. But unfortunately, it's a problem, and all the vultures are dying because people have been taking too many kind of like painkillers. And it's full of it's got all the drugs are still in their body, and these particular painkillers they take are toxic to these vultures. So the vultures have been dying because they've been eating toxic people. So there you go.
Okay,
look it up.
I'll look it up. I'm going to look that up. I'll write it down right now. Vultures. There was a.
What is it you call paracetamol? Tylenol. It might have been Tylenol.
Yeah, Tylenol.
Yeah, the acetaminophen.
You can OD on Tylenol pretty easily, actually.
It's
not
it's
hard.
bad for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Avoid.
There was
Yeah, you don't
one
need many.
last line one of the gardening people put out there. He offered an alternative suggestion. He said, put them in the sea or a river, which is only 5 meters away from the garden that we like to enjoy. Just
That's
dump
not
it
a
in the
good
river.
idea either.
But beyond all that, though,
Not a
beyond
good
the
idea either.
unpleasantness of having to hang around with human remains in your garden, is that it's not legal to dump human remains like that, apparently. So, but people just do it anyway, you know. And who's going to stop them? It's not like it's enforceable. But anyway, those wacky Brits over there in Cornwall. All right,
It's wacky Brits.
still at it.
What do you do with people's ashes? It's a big problem, isn't it? What do you do with them? You keep them in an urn on your mantelpiece forever.
Yeah, there's that. I know both my grandfathers were cremated, and their ashes were buried in like a container, like a nice wood container in the family plot, you know. So it saves space really, because you can put like 4 of those in the same place as a like a full casket would go.
Yeah, breaking news.
Here in Spain, oh, sorry, can I just say, here in Spain, they do these they have these sort of like really tall stone kind of like monoliths, except they're really wide. And that's where in a cemetery, and that's where people put their ashes. So each person's got little spots, and it's not under the ground; it's sort of up above. And they supply you a little step ladder, so you can get up to your granny, who might be on the top floor. So you put the flowers.
They do that.
There. So,
they do that here too.
I've seen those here.
Yeah, I've seen those out in California. I don't know why I haven't seen those elsewhere, but they have these, like you described. It's like a mausoleum with these little cubby holes, and you've got urns in the cubby holes, and you can go visit.
Yeah, I think it must be a Latin thing. It's probably come from Spain, so it's probably where there's a lot of Hispanics.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's a Catholic thing.
That could be it.
Oh, maybe, yeah, it could be, yeah.
You had something else, Perm? Breaking news?
It's not really breaking, but somebody had posted, this is going to be an interesting year, with a screenshot of the trending things on X. And 1 is Scott, 2 is Kanye, 3 is Big Balls, 4 is Maxine Waters. And Elon retweeted it saying, we're on the most interesting timeline. And then Kanye responded, yes, sir, but who's this Scott guy? So some Scott guy is trending higher than Kanye's fucking psychotic posts of the day. I have no idea.
Scott? Like Willard Scott, maybe? Nobody knows who Willard Scott is.
Trending.
Oh. Scott Bakula?
Let's see, what's trending? Scott. Yeah, Scott's the #1 trending. It's in politics.
What's he? Scott who? What's the
Scott
context?
Pressler?
Yeah.
Just how much we appreciate and support him. Scott Pressler. I have no idea who that is. I helped defeat Hillary. Organized the Baltimore cleanup. We delivered Pennsylvania for President Trump. Check out Early Vote Action MAGA. He must be one of the people that
on his campaign or something.
Yeah, maybe I have heard of him. If he's the guy I'm thinking of, yeah, there was a guy who was sort of reckon he
I think
managed
Ashley
to
knows
turn
who
a lot of the swing states Trump ways.
So I'm not I'm not familiar with him until just now this conversation, but somebody said that he helped the Amish vote. So I was wondering if he was sort of out there in Amish country trying to get them signed up to vote and facilitating that.
Since when do the Amish vote?
This is the guy This is the guy I heard about then.
I mean, wouldn't that violate the rules of using electronics and stuff? I mean, when have they ever been a vote? Well, I don't know. So, but they make good food, and
I don't use electronics to vote.
You don't have electronic voting up there in sunny Seattle?
No, I just get like an envelope in my mail, and then I like
Oh,
fill it in,
oh.
and then drop it
He
in a
doesn't
box.
have any Amish either, though, does he?
No, he
No.
doesn't.
I have heard of this guy. He did do a lot of. He was trying to launch a lot of sort of like grassroots Trump support stuff in various states. So
Well, apparently he's bigger than
he was
Kanye,
quite
right?
successful. Well, there you go. I don't want to come across as a completely sad loser boomer, but I just for laughs I looked up all the top 20 YouTube subscription channels, and I hardly heard of any of them.
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast, obviously, I've heard of,
Yeah.
and another one who's quite famous, but of all the others, I didn't have a clue who they were.
I probably don't
And I
either.
watch a lot of YouTube as well.
Yeah. Well, it's the people that are the top performing YouTube people aren't people that are for us. They're for kids and people who have mental disorders that just have to like watch something, you know. They gotta like focus on some autistic thing that they on the screen.
Well, no, that's
you know?
me. Describing me.
No, people of our intellectual fortitude would not be interested in most of the top 20 YouTubers, I would guess.
Great. That makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, I don't even watch videos.
You
So
don't watch
I watch zero videos. Everything that anybody sends me in Messenger or posts on Discord or anything, I don't watch any of.
Oh no, you didn't watch our what is it,
Good for
Andre
you.
Autotune stuff going on?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That was good stuff, man.
That was good
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, oh, come on, get with the program.
I mean, I watch You're Hurting Me a lot.
Is it only stuff that you can listen to? You're like listen only, or
Yeah,
you?
I'm audio only.
You
But
don't even watch Rogan clips on YouTube?
No, because I've already listened to the episode anyway.
Yeah. Terry, what's your story for this episode?
Thank you for asking. I will let you know immediately. So obviously I'm known as the volcano bus. So I
Yes,
thought
you
I'd give
are.
you a possibly volcano related story from the small Greek island of Santorini, and where they've been experiencing a big earthquake storm recently, which has been building in intensity and marching steadily towards the surface, which is something very familiar with us. When we saw the earthquakes building up and coming towards the surface, we got the hell out of Dodge just in time. So they might be advised to do the same thing. Now, the experts who are following the science are saying, well, don't worry, this is probably just some tectonic activity. But to me and to a lot of other people who are on the ground there, it looks more like a volcano is about to erupt. And Santorini's got a history of quite a lot of eruptions, and they had a big one in I think it was 1650 BC, and it did a lot of damage to the Minoan civilization, which was on the nearby island of Crete at the time. And it some people said they were quite the same afterwards, because it was about maybe Krakatoa size or maybe a bit bigger, and it unleashed a lot of tsunamis in the Mediterranean and the pyroclastic flows, and it was a nasty business. But they've had eruptions more recently than that, and some of them have killed people. They had a submarine eruption in 1650, I think it was, nearby, which also unleashed a lot of pyroclastic flows, which killed some people on the island of Santorini. And if you look at the island of Santorini, it's like a little crescent, because basically the center has just been blown apart. I think there was this big BC eruption that sort of blew it into bits. So it looks to me like something big's going to happen there. And The smart money is on sometime next week when there's going to be a new moon, because the tides of the not only affect the sea but also affect the earth. So the tidal pressure might unleash this volcano. So yeah, it's not looking good. The Greek government have announced a state of emergency and starting to evacuate people. But yeah, but if it's like a Krakatoa size thing, that's going to have a lot of obviously big effects in Europe and even around the world. Probably affect the weather. So yeah, something to look out for.
I'd like to say that I don't practice Santorini and I don't have a crystal ball, but it would be a good idea to keep our eye on this volcano, and hopefully next week it smooths over and isn't killing everybody. But a Krakatoa level eruption, that's
in the middle of Europe,
bad.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so good.
Yeah. Vesuvius, so that was the biggest one, right? That we have sort of in recorded history.
Vesuvius
right?
was, yeah, they measure volcano eruptions in what they call a VEI scale. And our one here was they reckon between a VEI 3 and a VEI 4. And I think Vesuvius was like a VEI 5. Krakatoa was a VEI 6. And they're saying that if it's as big as this prehistoric Santorini eruption, it might even be as high as a VEI 7, which is, I think it's maybe Mount Pinatubo.
I was about to say Pinatubo. Yeah. That was a big one too. That was out in the middle of the Pacific, though.
I think St. Helens was about a 5, as I remember correctly. So
was
that
it
was
that
quite
big
as well?
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty big, I think. Yeah.
If only we had someone local to that area might be able to shed some light on it. But I remember when St. Helens erupted. I had an uncle who lived up in the Seattle, and I remember my parents calling him to make sure he was okay. But I don't know. There was only like one guy died from St. Helens. He refused to leave the side of the mountain. That old story.
57.
It might have been more than that. A lot of livestock killed. Yeah, I think a lot of people died.
Okay. It was 5 years before I was born.
The thing about
I'm completely mistaken. Please disregard.
The thing about
you're just making stuff up again.
The thing about Mount St. Helens, they didn't realize. I've got an interesting fact too about it. They didn't realize, I think, quite how dangerous volcanoes could be, because they thought, well, lava comes down and normally you can drive away from it at worst, or even run away from it. So they didn't really quite understand about pyroclastic flows. And when you were talking about the Vesuvius eruption, there was reports from one of the Plinies. I can't remember if it was the elder or the younger, who was on a boat, and he described this sort of pyroclastic flow rolling down the hill, and that's what killed everyone in Pompeii, because they didn't really understand why all these people died in Pompeii. They thought, why didn't they just run away? But it was only when Mount St. Helens erupted, they thought, oh yeah, this is quite, because you probably remember the whole side of the mountain collapsed, which meant all the pyroclastic flows just ran down the hill and killed everyone in its path. So and after that, they now realize how dangerous these things can be.
You can see a large part of the top of the mountain missing to this day from that eruption.
So you said 57 people died in Mount
St.
Helens? Yeah, it says
57 people, 7,000 big game animals, 12 million hatchery fingerlings. And I guess it buried 14 miles of the river in the area.
Jeez.
Wasn't your local volcano rumbling a little while ago?
Rainier. We hear talk about it here and there, but I've never heard anything significant. I will say my mom has a jar of St. Helens ash she's had in the kitchen my entire life that she pulled over on the side of the road and scooped up during
That's pretty neat.
all of that.
Terry's got like buckets, 5-gallon buckets full of that stuff.
Yeah.
He's just hanging on to it. He knows it's going to be his retirement.
You need an Etsy account, Terry. Start selling it by little jars.
Yeah. Get little
Well,
little
the local
pendants with
government
it.
banned that, I'm afraid, so you couldn't do that. The
Uh,
government said you weren't allowed to sell it.
Oh,
Somebody
wow.
was trying to sell bags of it on the eBay, and the government put a stop to it.
what?
That's because they want to make their own money off of it.
Seriously?
Probably.
Of course.
If you think they're not selling that by the ton to agricultural, zones, you gotta. Come on.
It's very fertile. Apparently, you could buy, I think it was like 10-kilogram bags of volcanic ash in Britain for like, I don't know, I can't remember, it was about £30 or something. So when the eruption was happening, Justin and I were putting plans together how we're going to ship all the ash out of my garden and sell it around the world.
Right.
We could have been millionaires by now, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Oh, that's rotten. That is rotten right there.
So, Terry, will you tell us a little bit about how your garden has thrived? Didn't your carrots go gangbusters?
The first year things went bananas. Things grew at a crazy rate, but it's sort of the effect reduces quite quickly because I think it's got a load of minerals that the plant doesn't get hold of very easily in the ground, like sulfur and other things. So it was very, very fertile when it first comes down. It seems to sort of wash out quite quickly after that.
So I wonder if you go to another point where there's still ash in the ground, if you could be able to get that,
Maybe,
or if
yeah,
that would have
yeah.
washed out as
Maybe
well.
so. I might have to go into the crater.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
When you made it back to your house before they cleared it out, after the volcano had settled down a bit, were you able to go back to your house at some point and see it just covered in ash? Like was it like feet thick mounds of ash all over your house and yard and stuff? Or
for our Discord friends, yeah, exactly. For our Discord friends, I can share some photos if you like. We had to clamber over this huge mountain of ash to get to our front door. Fortunately, the front door was under a patio roof, so it wasn't right up to so you didn't have to sort of fight your way in. But yeah, there was a lot. It was literally 6 feet high in places.
Wow. That's crazy. All right, folks. What do we got? What Ashley, you said you had another story tucked away or not?
I do have another story tucked away that we can talk about, and there is a couple of other big things that are going on. So there is an apparent upcoming audit, supposedly. I just saw this on Twitter, of the Pentagon. So somebody shared a meme of it was a 9/11 style meme with a dog being really scared, and it said, remembering what happened the last time we audited the Pentagon, because leading news had reported that President says he has directed Elon Musk to audit the Pentagon. So I definitely think that there's something to be concerned about there. Then we have the whole story that has come out about the audit of USAID, and that they're, have been funneling money to media all over the place. And a lot of people think that they're getting slashed.
Yeah.
Some people say that they're actually just going to be absorbed into another organization, that we're not actually getting more transparency.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Part of me thinks that some of the transparency is actually organic. And I saw an account, I think they're called Just Some Girl or something, on Twitter, but I thought she had a pretty good take on this. I agree with it, that basically if we are seeing some truth in government, if we're actually getting clarity, if we're actually getting audits, we're actually reducing the fat, that it's probably likely setting things up for more of the AI governance. And that makes sense to me. I don't think in the day and time that we're in that government is actually going to be shrinking, especially with knowing kind of the looming threat that we have from the predator class, World Economic Forum, things like that. I believe that it's clearing the way for an AI type situation. In addition to, it seems pretty obvious with them building a $500 billion AI project called Stargate. So that's going on. I don't know that we're
Yeah.
really getting. Oh, go ahead, Terry.
No, I was saying could be. To be honest, I think I might take AI over the current government at the moment, particularly in like
did-
Europe and the UK.
Have any of us, because I haven't, looked too deeply into the USAID funding of the media? Like all I saw was kind of headlines saying like Politico received millions of dollars and this and that. What was the explanation for all that? Like, what's the official tagline? Is it were they being reimbursed for overseas travel that requested by the government or something like that, or is it just they were being funded just blatantly, or what was the story behind all that?
I think that's a good question.
I can't find it. I know one of the things was they were funding a version of Sesame Street in Egypt. Believe it or not.
Well, that's PBS.
They gave the BBC a lot of money as well, actually, for their. The BBC have got this awful group that sort of is promoting democracy in countries like Iran. You know, and basically they're involved in trying to do regime change by indoctrinating the local journalists into their way of thinking. I think it's called Media Action. So they gave the BBC Media Action a lot of money. And they were also they were funding some lots of tranny stuff and DEI stuff, and there was some gay play that was getting funded in I can't remember what country it was. There's a lot of funny stuff like that. The press secretary came out with a big list,
or was it just gay?
I saw that. She was talking to the press about some of the things that were funding, but I can't quite find it now.
Yeah, and there is a lot out there about different things that are getting funded or that were. So one of the things that I saw was that all of the celebrities that had made these propaganda style visits to the Ukraine were funded through USAID, including Angelina Jolie getting $20 million and Ben Stiller getting $4 million. And then you had a statement from Ben Stiller. Not that I'm saying you can believe him or trust the situation. I'm just saying that he responded by saying that he fully funded the trip himself. So I think, who knows? I think it's really hard to tell. And I think we're being flooded with a ton of information, not only about this USAID, with all of the executive orders, with all the other like minutia that I've been, distracting myself with, like Kanye's tweets today, the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively saga, the fact that Brigitte Macron is a man, in addition to everything else that's going on. It's wacky. It's hard to keep up. And even if you do try to keep up, it's really difficult to be able to tell what is the actual truth, especially in a situation of this frivolous money being thrown out everywhere, supposedly. How do we know?
It's clown world. It's clown world. Honk.
Maybe Ben Stiller did fund his trip, but they're just labeling this Black Ops money as, okay, this was $4 million that we paid Ben Stiller to go speak to in Ukraine or whatever.
100% possibility, 100%.
Yeah, and for those of us listening, USAID
I think most people
is widely accepted as a CIA front, right? I mean, that's like what it's known for.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's just
it has
Black
been
Ops
since
money.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
So whenever you hear a story about USAID going overseas and doing something like foreign aid or relief or whatever, there's certainly a CIA operation happening in that region that USAID is, put its tentacle out and placing that there, and that's the cover for it.
This also would tie in with my theory that the Mega Millions lottery is actually just funneling in money into stuff exactly like USAID, and that it's a CIA front, and that nobody ever actually wins the Mega Millions.
I'm going to win it. God damn it. I'm going to win.
Funny that
jackpot.
There hasn't been a single person that's gone viral that's won it in this day and age.
I don't believe it. I don't even think it exists.
Out there, somebody should have won it that was like, oh, I'm gonna get famous as fuck, and just start like recording everything they do with the money and go like super
Yeah.
viral from it.
Sure. You could go like if you're on TikTok and if you were genuine and you were allowed to trend normally, you could be like a Mr. Beast situation. You could absolutely find viral fame, but I don't think that happens because I don't think it exists. I think it's just a money laundering operation. It's just another tax on the people that buy lottery tickets and are trying to win, and they don't even know it. That's what I
Hey,
think.
I've won a couple dollars here and there, so you win something
That's like the
Sure,
once in a while.
McDonald's thing. Did you hear about that documentary or whatever? Of course, you win free Big Macs and breakfast sandwiches and shit, but they were like corporate was giving the actual big things to people they knew.
You mean like the Monopoly
Yeah, the Monopoly
thing?
thing.
Whatever happened
Like
to that? They used to do that
Boardwalk
every
and
year.
Boardwalk was always given to somebody like that corporate knew.
Those
There was,
bastards.
I guess, there was a documentary about it.
Those
I heard, but I never-
delicious bastards.
I never watched it.
I didn't watch it either.
But I may check it out. I do like documentaries, but corruption knows no ends. So I feel like, yes, people do win, Keel, but I think it's more from the state lottery. A lot of times it's a scratch off and it'll be like the state's quote education lottery, even though education, people like, what is the word that I'm looking for? Basically, the metrics that would measure education level and how successful it is have not improved anywhere with the introduction of the lottery or not. And teachers still really talk about how they don't make enough money. And I'm not saying... Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, finish your thought.
I'm just saying, I know that they could make more money, but if you really look at the amount of hours that are worked in an entire year, and then you compare that to somebody else who is grinding it out in corporate America, they're not only expected to work 180 days a year plus like the other days. So I think the math is not really mathing. I'm not trying to hate on teachers at all, but I'm just saying, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, teachers do have a tough job, but
I'm not saying they don't.
Funding for education has gone. I mean, there's like it's exponentially increased over the decades, and quality has not improved at all.
Correct.
It's just money has nothing to do with it.
The test scores haven't gone up in like the last 80 years or something like that.
And there's a huge percent. It's just like in the hospital system that goes towards administration. Go ahead, Terry.
As we have pointed out, teaching may be a tough job, but there are perks like being able to get off with people that you like, and maybe make him president. So,
Yeah, there you go.
The crazy thing is the superintendents of the districts make like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and I feel like they don't do anything.
I will say, on a local level, our what do you call it? The Gwinnett County here in Georgia superintendent or council school whatever council. A few years back, promoted this guy to be superintendent, and he was a DEI guy. He was trying to push these policies into our county schools. He has been ousted as of like last week, and thank the gods, because that guy was terrible. Nobody liked him, so he's out. Maybe things will improve, and I won't have to move my family out of the county in order to have a decent, school district to live in.
You know who else just got ousted?
Who?
Donald Trump just revoked Joe Biden's access to classified information and daily security briefings.
Oh, poor guy.
He's got it all in his garage anyway.
He ended the post with, "Joe, you're fired. Make America great again."
But why would Joe? It's not like he doesn't have the cognitive faculties to read a document anymore. Like
He
let's get
he
real.
probably putters
But
around the
Elon
house
retweeted
still.
it saying Biden's memory is not functional.
For sure.
He's puttering around the house in his retirement, like, oh, where do I put that executive order? I got to sign it now. I got to sign it. And his wife, Dr. Jill's, now Bill, or just
Bill,
whatever his name is. What is
Joe.
his name? Joe, Bill, Joe. They're all the same. Don.
That's all in the past, Joe. You can relax now.
Keel's had a lot of
George.
whiskey and a long week.
I've had a couple of whiskeys here.
It's your ice cream.
Are we about done? Because we need to wrap this up.
I think that we are. I have something
We
that
do.
I need to apologize to everybody who's ever listened to me. I noticed it when I went and listened to our Faking Gay episode. I noticed something about myself that I did, and it was awful.
really?
It was a horrible realization. Yes, I will go like this before I say something.
Smack your gums.
I do that. I do that as well.
Excuse me. And so I noticed it, and I may have even done it in the first part of this episode. But it was so annoying. I was like, how many times have I done this?
Do you know, Ashley? No one would have noticed until you mentioned it, so you would have got away with it. So, but it's horrible listening to yourself, and you pick up on all your funny things you say. And
if you go back to our very first episode, I do that quite a bit in that very first, and it was pointed out to me by a friend of mine. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. And I don't know if I do or not, but I haven't noticed it. I didn't notice yours, Ashley, in the Faking Gay episode.
It's really hard to stop.
Yeah.
It is hard to stop. You have to be just very mindful, which I guess I should always be mindful before I go around blabbing. I'm not great at that. But you really need to be telling yourself, don't start this off with
just blab away.
Do it.
Don't start this off with a.
Hey, Ashley, I got a question for you.
Yes, Keel?
How can fans of the Union of the Unknowns get in touch with the Union of the Unknowns?
Well, Keel, I'm glad that you asked. The fans that are looking to get in touch with the Union of the Unknowns can find us at unionoftheunknowns.com. That's our Linktree page that has all the myriad ways that you can get in touch with us, including Twitter, email, voicemail, and our personal Union of the Unknowns Discord. So please feel free to reach out to us, get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you. Back to you,
If
Keel.
you
Thank you.
forget unionoftheunknowns.com, you can also go to permnation.com, and that'll also take you to our link tree.
Perfect.
Do we have any other websites?
TerryCanary.com as well. TerryCanary.com, notyournumbers.com.
NotYourMothers.com. Oh, so many ways to contact us.
It's fair to say we have our contact bases are very well covered. It's a beautiful thing.
We got you covered. Viewers and listeners, we got you covered.
I think it's fair to say it would be really hard to not contact us on a daily basis.
Yeah. So,
Just by accident.
So what are you waiting for?
Just do
Also, we're fun on Twitter, so that's the most
we're on.
fun way
I
to
gotta
do
tell
it.
you guys, listeners, we are on every
Yes.
social media platform imaginable at this point.
We even
So
have
just-
Blue Sky, but I only
Blue
post
Ski.
our episodes there.
We got Blueski. There is actually a Union of the Unknowns Blueski account. So
Oh yeah, they recently followed me, but I've been posting
yeah,
our episodes there for like a year and a half before there
Yes.
were ever a bunch of libs over there.
Firm was on top of it from the beginning.
Are we on Parler? Because Parler's back now. We need to
Parler?
get on Parler.
I forgot about Parler.
Yeah,
I forgot
Parler's
about
back.
Parler too.
I've never used it.
Mm.
Now that Terry brings it up, Keel's gonna have to add it to his list. This man works so hard to put our
I think
content
we need
Will.
Ism.
everywhere.
I love-
I think
I love Craig work.
we need Ism can't do the Parler.
Whew. Oh, I got accounts to spare. If you guys want to take one?
A very appropriate choice.
All right, guys. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Perm. Thank you, Terry Canary. Thank you, listeners and viewers and readers of our transcript and people on desert islands who've never heard of us. Thank you, everybody. We are the Union of the Unknowns, and we are out.
Bye-bye.
Not Your Mama's News has been a production of the Union of the Unknowns podcast. New episodes are available weekly on all your favorite podcasting networks.